Next up, we have Ethan Perlstein. So Ethan Perlstein is the founder of Perlara and also the founder of Curetopia, one of the DeSci DAOs. This time last year, he was up on stage giving a talk, and he was just the founder of Perlara at that point. In this year gap, he has managed to fundraise for Curetopia. So yeah, welcome to the stage, Ethan.
All right, good afternoon, Berlin. Wait, that's very low energy. All right. When I say D, you say Psi. D? 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 All right. Everyone's awake now. Okay, my name is Ethan. I'm the founder of Curetopia. Our mission is to end rare diseases for all humankind. Let me share a brutal statistic with you. 1 in 10 people on this planet is suffering from a rare disease. Let's prove out this statistic. Raise your hand if you have or know someone who has a rare disease. All right, we're sort of matching up the numbers. Everyone who did not raise their hand, you have a homework assignment. Ask 10 people in your network, friends, family, and I guarantee you will turn up somebody with rare disease if you don't already. So the problem is that really 2 major problems in the battle against rare diseases. The first is access to sustainable funding, and the second is really putting teeth into the statement of patient centricity, patient co-ownership. It is time to leave this system behind. I like to say that we're building biotech on-chain. Curetopia is the first biotech DAO that is committed to eradicating rare diseases through DeSci. Curetopia addresses the unmet needs of over 10,000, let me repeat that, 10,000 and counting rare disease communities around the world. These diseases impose a tremendous cost on society. In one study in the US alone, it was estimated that rare diseases impose $1 trillion cost. I'll get to the other side of the coin, which is the opportunity, in a second. And the major pain points that Curetopia is solving is really about empowering and rewarding patient communities with governance tokens in exchange for participating in rare disease research and contributing their data. And we also ensure anti-shelving protections of promising therapies so they don't fall through the cracks with smart contracts. These are the major pain points that are ailing rare diseases globally, and Curetopia is, as a global remit, it is going to implement Web3 to solve this problem. When you hear the word rare, part of you probably shuts down because you think, this doesn't affect me, this doesn't affect anyone I know, it's probably not important, or it's something charitable, something not really commercial. I want to convince you otherwise. I want to convince you that rare is alpha. So when I say rare genetic diseases, I want you to think rare earth metals, something very precious, something very valuable, something you have to go out and find. But once you do find that, it will be a force multiplier for technology. So rare is alpha. And this is not just me fantasizing. This is actually grounded in reality. Everyone here probably knows about the statins, the cholesterol-lowering drugs. Maybe some of you are a little bit on the older side, are probably taking a statin. Well, did you know that statins were not originally approved for the prevention of heart disease? They were actually approved for a much narrower indication, a familial form of hypercholesterolemia, people who were dropping dead of heart attacks in their 20s and 30s. Statins were originally developed for this very small population, and then only later did cholesterol get credentialed as a biomarker, which then opened up the door to seeing statins as a promising therapy to prevent heart disease, and now they're a global mega blockbuster. So this is not going to happen for every rare disease, but there is a promise of a rare disease moonshot for some rare diseases. So let me paint a picture here with some facts. And I'm not saying that NMN is going to be this moonshot, although maybe some of you are already taking this for longevity purposes. We did a number of screens, and I'll talk a little bit more about our process, but we arrived at NMN as a potential therapeutic option for a very rare metabolic disease called DHDDS. And what was really interesting about this is that we were working with families as we were developing this research process. And normally what we had done in the pre-Curetopia days was something called an N of 1. Everyone's heard of Brian Johnson, yes? Okay, so he's conducting probably the most famous N of 1 right now in the planet, but he's doing it entirely off-chain. Imagine taking that N of 1 paradigm and moving it on-chain. Now you can flip the equation, and now you can talk about scaling from 1 to N being any arbitrary number. And for some rare diseases, that N is only 10. And some rare diseases, it's thousands, but it's generally small numbers. But how do we think about scaling N of ones? I think you do that by going on chain. And here are just a couple of pioneer kiddos who have DHEDS, and I'll show you a little bit about one of their journeys. So this is Rosie. She's suffering from DHEDS. This is a progressive neurodegenerative disease. What you'll see on the before is this is her baseline. Oops, this always does this.
Excellent.
Let's play the, no, go back. Let's play the first video first. This always happens. Well, I want you, the after doesn't have much of an effect if you don't see the before, but this is really frustrating. Normally I would ask you if you can tell the difference, and you should, but
that was really good, Ray.
You'll have to take my word for it that she was a little bit unstable when she was walking in the before, and she's actually able to do 2 laps. This is not a cure, but this is hopefully a foundational treatment and the primitive layer of a stack that will hopefully add to as we do more and more drug repurposing and eventually shift to drug discovery. Okay, hopefully the next, I'm going to show you in reverse order just to play with your minds. Is it not going to work again? I'm sorry for the, okay, let's go to the next, okay, actually, let's do them in parallel.
Really
okay.
good,
So
One
raise your
step in
hand as
front
soon
of
as
the
you
other.
notice a difference.
That's it.
Is everyone's eyes open? Come on, do you see a difference?
No, you're fine. Just do one foot in front of the other, Rosie.
Okay, maybe it will be a little bit more apparent in the next test, which is the Archimedes spiral trace. So this is her before. And maybe I'll play them both.
You can hold the other hand steady. You can hold the paper steady with the other hand.
Again, raise your hand if
and
you
now
notice
try
the
and whiz through it
difference.
without resting your hand on the table.
So these are the types of effect sizes we're
That's
looking
good,
for,
that's
not
great,
necessarily
carry on.
curative, but something that is sort of obvious to the eye, and then once you apply other forms of analysis, we'll be able to quantify this.
Really good.
And you can see the static images on below.
Whiz it round.
So these are what I call these off-chain N of ones. Now start to imagine a world where all of those were conducted on-chain. I also like to think about rare diseases as a wormhole. I use many different metaphors here because the word rare itself doesn't do justice to this cause. But think about a rare disease wormhole. You start, for example, in rare familiar hypercholesterolemia, and you end up in treating coronary heart disease. This process, I think, is going to repeat multiple times. Again, will every rare disease wormhole take you to a common indication? No, but I think many of them will do, especially if you stack the deck and focus on certain metabolic diseases, which I think are models of longevity. And what we're doing is taking an approach where we start with drug repurposing, which has been alluded to several times because it's faster and cheaper. But the part about drug repurposing that I think people sleep on is that drug repurposing constitutes a data set for Gen AI so that you can make next generation drugs. You can start with precursors that are approved drugs and then use AI to make enhanced versions. So by strategically working in metabolic diseases, we think we're setting ourselves up for pretty attractive expansion opportunities into common diseases. You can basically think about 2 buckets of diseases. You're either a rare disease or you're a disease of aging. So there are major tailwinds in rare that people don't often appreciate. So the likelihood of an approval for a rare disease drug is twice as high as it is for the all-disease average. And that's true at the various stages of attrition as you pass through deeper into the clinic. It's still a paltry 17% approval, so 80% of the time you're still failing. Imagine if SpaceX launched a rocket and 80% of the time it would blow up. That was the case many years ago, but now that doesn't happen. But in drug discovery, we simply have that. We're stuck in SpaceX 2010, where 90% of the time we send something down the pipeline and it blows up. The other thing I want to call out is that Web3 really allows for, I think, unlocking of major capital efficiency, and this is something that we can take to the next level with Curetopia. But in my second biotech startup, which was a joint venture between a family that was directly affected by the disease and a medicine that we were developing for that disease, we were able to trim is probably, it's not doing justice. We were able to massively shave down the cost, not so much yet as HairDAO showed, but we're going to hopefully approach those orders of magnitudes of savings. This trial that we ran for phase 3 did not work, but it taught us a lot of things that we're recycling into the next fleet of trials that we hope to get going in the next 6 months plus. So I like to say that I'm a repeat biotech founder backing into crypto. I know a lot of Web3 folks have been the pioneers into the DeSci space. And yes, I have a trad bio exterior, but I guarantee you underneath, I'm a crack degen. And so I think the perspective I want to share here is DeSci needs more, I think, hybrid species like me, people coming from a trad bio background. I do happen to have some crypto nativity as well. That was a nice add-on. Certainly wasn't essential, I think, to start out, but you better get up to speed quickly. And I've also been on the investor side, mostly focusing on YC bio companies. So I think I bring to these three sort of streams together as founder, as operator, and as investor, and now embodying them in Curetopia. So we're a composable community. Shout out Chris Dixon for the word composable. Right now, I want to call out a couple of visionary partners. Obviously, Bio, we weren't able to launch without them, and it wouldn't have been possible for me to do this without them. Also, a big shout out to DeSci, our designer, who I'm not sure is in the audience, but definitely talk to Cy McClellan. He designed all of our stuff. And meet Paula, who's somewhere around here, who runs all of our marketing and content generation. We're also going to be working with Molecule, this amazing DeSci platform, excited for Molecule Labs. And then we've been working with Perlara, which is sort of our brick and mortar partner that is doing the actual drug repurposing screens. So a little bit about our team. The team has been sort of imported from Perlara. One of team members is actually in the audience here. Kristen, raise your hand. Go say hi. So I'm really excited to present this team, and we're already cooking. That's the great part about being a repeat founder is I've got a network and traction and experience, and I can put all of that to work really quickly with amazing team members. A little bit about DAO governance. We have a Cures token. We launched our auction on Solana. We were the first BioDAO to launch our fundraiser on Solana. We raised $2 million about 3 months ago. So we've been officially cooking for only a few months. We have Cures tokens. The plan here is to utilize them, as I said in the first slide, to incentivize contributions and participation of families into decentralized trials. And then, of course, there's access to future IP that will be generated by the DAO. I'll get a little bit into that. I can't really fully explicate all the science here, but go to our website and you can take in all the information you want about using yeast avatars, yeast disease models to model inherited metabolic diseases. We have taken this platform approach of using yeast and other simple organisms to model metabolic diseases, and we've turned the crank now. And then empirically, it's no contest. Yeast gets the best bang for your buck, and evolutionarily speaking, you have a lot of conservation of these metabolic pathways. So this is why Curetopia's first platform construction enterprise is being driven by yeast models. And what I'm showing here is just the catalog of some of the programs that Perlara has worked on directly with families. These are all inherited metabolic diseases. The N refers to number of kiddos who have tried one of the substances. Hopefully you'll notice by scanning this list that many of the molecules here are like NMN. They're nutraceuticals. They're easily accessible. Don't need IRB or FDA to get access to some of these medicines. So that's also super encouraging because we can obviously accelerate into the clinic. We're focusing initially on a group of related metabolic diseases called the RS genes. The RS genes are these essential building blocks of every life form on this planet. All of the proteins in your body are beads on a string, and each of those beads is attached into this protein necklace through these intermediaries called charged tRNAs. And as I said, you can think about these RS genes as like Lego bricks of life, right? So alanine, cysteine, aspartic acid, so on and so forth. These are the 20 canonical amino acids. And every single organism on this planet utilizes this Lego brick system to build up its substrates. So we're going to start with letter A, and we're going to work our way through the alphabet. And we already are excited that we have results, and I actually just got results last Friday, and I'll show those. They're hot off the presses. But our first project that we actually launched pre-auction, we had a $100,000 grant from Bio, and we were able to convert that into a screen and to preclinical candidates and to a provisional patent filing that we're preparing all in about 3 months. And we're partnering with a patient advocacy group called Cure Ours, including the mom shown here with her daughter. Ashley, the mom, is the co-founder of this organization and is helping us access the rest of this community. And her daughter, Aubrey, will be hopefully one of the N of ones to try one of the medications that is coming out of our pipeline. So we did a one-shot screen for ARS2. That's one of those 40 building blocks of proteins. We completed that even before the auction started. And what I'm showing you in this box here, these orange dots represent particular compounds that are rescuing or therapeutic candidates for this particular metabolic deficiency. And I can't disclose the structures yet because this is obviously going to be confidential as part of our patent filing, but we're really excited that we're able to generate these results pretty quickly. And then we're at the stage now with our RS2 program where we're now screening the top of the heap. So we have 3 finalists that we're trying to narrow down to 1. This is just showing you the data that we're able to recapitulate the results of our screen, and we can trust them. And now we're hopefully going to advance with one of these 2 nutraceuticals or an FDA-approved analog. And our goal for this quarter, is already revving up as we speak, is to scale up from this initial test flight screen to a portfolio of about 40 R's genes that represent this end-to-end cohesive therapeutic pipeline. So by bundling and by doing other types of tricks, we can unlock a lot of cost savings, a lot of efficiencies. So yes, we don't move at the speed of degen traders, we're second by second, but we're making progress on a day to week to month schedule, so not years. And the exciting part about this set of R's genes is that I mentioned that rare disease moonshot. Well, the potential here is that these R's mutations, these R's genes, are responsible for some of the most common neurological neurodegenerative condition called Charcot-Marie-Tooth. So even though these R's genes are only affecting tiny microcommunities, there is a possibility that this could expand into something much more applicable. And so this is data that's hot off the presses from last Friday. Again, we have a working screen. We have a number of rescuers. These are going to go into an IP filing. We're really excited about that. And then what we're really excited about is building out this entire 40 disease pipeline over the rest of this year, and then we can start to do some really cool things. And this is where the AI agents will come in to help us extract some of the insights that are not obvious. So you can look at this plot here of the results of compounds that rescue ARS2 on the x-axis, that rescue this other, our second R's candidate that we've screened, YARS2, and you can see that there's a molecule right up here that's shared between both of them. That's super interesting. There's other molecules that are shared that are rescuing both of these disease states, and then there are, of course, molecules that are unique to each of them. So as we build out this portfolio of 40 related programs, you can start to imagine this matrix growing. And of course, we're going to need bioagents to help us glean all of the insights. So this is our roadmap. We're maybe a little bit touch behind here, but mostly sticking to this schedule. We had to trim our sales just a bit from 60 diseases down to 40 because the auction pulled in a little less than we might have anticipated. Grateful the auction even worked at all, given how brutal the mini bear was a few months ago. So we're really excited to be cooking and executing as we speak. And if you want to follow along, you can follow along on X, you can follow along in our Telegram. We'll be launching a Discord server later this month. But we're really, really excited to hopefully be launching our first N of 1s on-chain later this summer. Obviously more to share on that soon. And then Curetopia will have, by the end of this year, a wholly owned, fully proprietary portfolio of programs where each shot on goal might have been, in the end, 25, 30, 40K. So harking back to those numbers that DeSci showed, I think that's going to be systemic across all DeSci, where we're going to drive down costs by orders of magnitude. And then, of course, that translates to major ROI on the other side. So we like to think about community medicines, maybe platforms in the pill. As I already showed you, just a pairwise comparison of 2 of our R's genes is already showing us common rescuers. Maybe we can find one molecule that could work across this entire family of diseases, so that you take these really small communities and start to stack them up into something a little bit more commercializable, a little bit more investable. We can go DTC with this approach. We can follow in the footsteps of DAO, and I mentioned Brian Johnson and his blueprint are both proof points of how one could go direct to consumer, especially with these nutraceutical focus. And then, of course, we've heard a ton about IP NFTs and then subsequent IPTs, and we have plans also to spin out potential entities into commercially focused clinical stage companies focused on particular assets. We can co-develop with partner companies. We can even out-license in cases where we trust a partner, for example, partnering with a public benefit corporation. So thank you for your attention. This is Curetopia. Our mission is to end rare diseases for all humankind. Please check us out, curetopia.xyz. Happy to answer any questions in the follow-up sessions later. Thank you.